Hey, and welcome to another episode of the AT Banter podcast.
You suck. That was terrible.
I didn't have a frog in my throat.
Whatever.
This is the AT Banter podcast, a balanced and entertaining look at assistive technology, accessibility, and its importance in people's lives. Join Rob Minot, Ryan Fleury, and Steve Barclay as they banter with people around the world about anything and everything regarding assistive technology and the disability community. Now, on with the show.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of AT Banter. Hello.
I decided not to do it this week.
Why? Why? Why would you do that?
To be different.
No, to throw me off on a Monday.
Yep,
Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
Banter. My name is Rob Minot, and joined with me is the obstinate Ryan Fleury.
Howdy.
And Mr. Cowbell. Okay, is here.
It looks like I don't have your home address yet. What is it?
Cancel.
Privacy concerns.
That's right.
Clearly.
And
You don't want to give our entire podcast audience your address?
Nope.
Why not? Come on.
And we haven't played Mr. Cowbell for the last two shows.
Yeah, I know. Here.
There we go. Welcome back, Cowbell.
There you go. No Steve Barclay today. He's off on business. So it's just the two of us.
Not going to do it.
Good. So today, let me tell you what we're doing, Ryan.
That would be awesome.
Just to change it up, since you're so desperate to do things differently today as opposed to any other week, I will tell you what we are doing today.
Sounds good.
We are talking to Anita Hofer, who is the one associated with the Inclusio Development project in Calgary, which is a 45-room, fully automated, accessible living space for Calgarians. So that's pretty exciting. And we're also talking to Mike Dummer, who is with Digital Lifestyles, who was actually the developer who was responsible for all the home automation. It should be an interesting show. It'll be interesting to talk to these guys because, this Inclusio Development has actually been in the news quite a bit over the past month or so. So been looking forward to having him on the show.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you doing?
I'm doing ducky.
No, you're not, you liar.
You're right. My schedule's out of whack. My wife left me only for a week. But yeah, it's kind of strange.
Yeah, so where'd she go?
She went up to visit her uncle who had a knee replacement last week. So she's been helping him out.
So you've been pinballing around the place by yourself, batching it up?
Yeah, it's too quiet though. I need other noises in the house.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I like this living as a bachelor anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I love it.
Really?
Oh, it's great.
You're not lonely?
No.
Really? Well, I guess you have that blow-up doll.
No, shut up. You leave Betty out of this.
I thought it was Sally.
No.
Oh, I thought
Sally was last year.
I thought you had twins for a while.
Yeah. Ran out of puncture repair kits. So. No, I'm loving. Yeah, I every night I'm so addicted to the reality show that is the Trump White House that it's amazing.
I can't be bothered.
CNN is just I just can watch CNN for hours and hours. Oh, it's so great.
I'm just not interested.
Every day is just a new train wreck, and it's fascinating to watch. So that takes up a lot of my time, and
yeah,
this damn podcast. Hey, before we get going, I wanted to bring up. I noticed this article from our good friends at Cool Blind Tech over the weekend. Have you heard of this new Microsoft app called Soundscape?
I read a little bit of the article. I saw the headline, so I guess I didn't read the article. Yeah, sounds interesting.
It's very interesting
to actually get somebody on and talk about.
Yeah, so for those people who out there that haven't heard of this, Microsoft has a new iOS app called Soundscape, and it uses 3D audio technology to sort of map out landmarks and points of interest through audio cues. Users can they can set specific audio beacons at specific destinations, and the app will provide sort of an audio cue when you pass by there. So, between this and the Seeing AI app, Microsoft's really kind of hitting it out of the park in terms of accessibility apps.
There has definitely been a big push on accessibility, and they're going to be at CSUN coming up later this month as well, and I'm sure their accessibility division will be there. So it's exciting to see what's coming down. There's a new version of Windows 10 that'll probably be out in the next month, and they're always including more and more accessibility features.
Don't talk to me about a new version of Windows 10.
Yep.
It's interesting. What I wonder, and what I couldn't really suss out of the article, was whether or not it's crowdsourced. Like, so for example, if you set an audio cue for the Nike store in your mall, whether that gets fed to a cloud, and so somebody else is able to download your waypoints, your points of interest. I'm a little fuzzy on that, so I'll have to wait until I can actually download that and play with it a little bit. But and of course, Ryan's grumpy because the fact that it's being released for iOS first, which is the same thing for the Seeing Eye app, right? Like, that's still being developed for Android, right?
It's being developed, yeah.
They're working on it.
Yeah, I think they sent out a survey they want people who are using Android to fill out and send back to them to give them feedback. But it is something. It is coming.
Right. So that that's a little bit of a sore point for we Android users. iOS seems to get the fun first, even though Android is a pretty good market share. And I don't know what the numbers are, but I would say that it's fairly substantial, right?
Overall, I'd say there's a lot more Android users in the world than there are iOS.
Oh, you think so?
In the world, overall, yeah.
Really?
If you're talking just blind users, that number's growing all the time.
Sure.
But I guess everybody still thinks iOS is king in the blindness, low vision department.
So maybe that's what it is. So in terms of when you're developing a blindness or even any sort of accessibility app, iOS is still sort of king.
Yeah, and I think there's probably technologies out there, like Microsoft is changing the way they do their apps, and they're going to what are called progressive web apps. And basically, a developer will be able to develop an app once, and it'll be cross-platform. So if that's the case, then it shouldn't be long before Microsoft or a third-party developer develops an app, puts it in its little wrapper, and sends it out, and we all get it at the same time.
Right.
That would be awesome. But we'll see.
Sure.
I've actually in the last couple of weeks been thinking, my next phone may be an iPhone just so I can get these apps.
Sure. Yeah, I could see that. What I find interesting about this particular app, we have this sort of beacon technology that's sort of running alongside something like this as well, and I just wonder if they sort of are in competition with each other, or at the end of the day, once we get some really great beacon technology and beacon apps, between this and something like Seeing AI, I mean, you could have a really powerful low vision and blindness solution right on your smartphone.
Yeah, and I don't think it would replace the beacon technology. I know, like with the Right Here beacons, the information you get fed is written in by, whoever is administrating that beacon. So you're walking down the street, you get an alert on your phone, it says, Vancouver Public Library, 30 feet on your right. As you keep approaching, you'll get pinged by the next beacon that says you're at the main entrance.
So it's probably can be a lot more specific than something like this can be. Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. So between all of them, if they're all working seamlessly together, from your doorstep to your destination, you could have a really, really powerful mobility aid in once they're all sort of wrapped in.
Yeah, we're getting there. Seeing AI, gives you the OCR of short text, documents, barcode reading, a lot of different features, and they're adding more all the time. So, The iPhone's a pretty powerful tool right now.
Yeah, for sure. So hopefully they'll expand that out, roll that out to all us Android users as well. And, smartphones in general will just be, and there's talk of smart canes as well. And we talked about smart paint a few weeks ago. It sounds like it's a pretty exciting time right now with all this stuff being developed. Joining us today is Anita Hofer, who is the Director of Development for Accessible Housing. Anita, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just start things. Tell us a little bit about what you guys do at Accessible Housing, and how long has the organization been going?
Sure. Well, Accessible Housing is a Calgary-based not-for-profit organization that was founded in the early 70s. So we've been around for 40 years, just doing sort of quiet, good work in the community. The organization was founded by a woman whose brother was leaving hospital after a spinal cord injury, and there was literally no place for him to go. So this home was built to house 12 people that were leaving hospital and sort of needed a place to transition to learn how to self-manage their care and get their lives back. And then over the years, a number of other programs were added, a number of properties were added, and now we have many programs and services that serve a lot of different individuals, and we're not necessarily just focused on people with spinal cord injury, but many different kinds of limited mobility. And we serve people in the community. We have some seniors in some of our programs, we have families in one of our residential renovation programs, and then we're building a new home called Inclusio. So we've just got a lot of things on the go.
Yeah, absolutely. And Inclusio was actually was the actual development that sort of caught our eye. I think Ryan noticed it on the CBC website, which is what prompted us to contact you and reach out and to get you on the show. Could you tell us a little bit about Inclusio and what kind of sets it apart from other developments that are kind of like it?
Sure. Well, Inclusio is really different. So Inclusio is going to be a 45-unit home for people living in Calgary here. It's in the northeast community of Capitol Hill, or rather northwest community of Capitol Hill. So first of all, the geography of the building is quite unique. So it's considered to be affordable housing. And when most people think of affordable housing, they don't think about necessarily the most beautiful neighborhoods in their cities, but this is literally where this home is. So it is in just a gorgeous community that most people would want to live in, on the edge of a beautiful park with Kensington, a really cool and hip area just down the road, with U of C within easy transit distance, a church down the road. It's kind of like a chic hipster community with beautiful homes and great neighbors. So that's the first thing that makes it unique. But secondly, the building itself is really custom built. So the home is completely accessible. So in all of the resident spaces, there are 5-foot turning radiuses. So someone in a wheelchair can easily move around. Someone in a large power chair can easily move around. There's double elevators. The hallways are nice and wide. So everything is made so that a person with that's a full-time wheelchair user can just get in and out. And so that if you have a place full of 45 people that are using wheelchairs, they can all move about easily. Because sometimes we think about having 1 or 2 folks with wheelchairs, but not necessarily, more than that. So
Right.
It's a really exquisite place. The views from the patios are beautiful to the park. The construction of the building is really different. And then we've got this new technology element, which is meaning that the residents can just be a little bit more independent because they can access all of these things in their room so easily without the help of someone else. So it's going to be a really awesome place when it's done.
So tell us a little bit about the technology part of it. So I'm assuming you're referring to stuff like the smart home features and a digital assistants and stuff. Is that sort of the thing that's...
Yeah, it's sort of like that. So all of the residents will have a smart device, so an iPhone or an iPad or something like that, where there's an app installed on the phone, which then connects them to technology in each of the resident rooms that allow them to sort of adjust their living environment independently. So instead of asking for someone's help to adjust the blinds, let's say, they can adjust the blinds on the windows themselves. They can just push a button. They can go up and down. The lights in the room, the temperature in the room, any of the media in the room. So if you wanted to, watch your new show on Netflix, you can just call that up using the device. And then as the building grows and as technology changes, as we all know it does so quickly, the device, or rather the technology, is meant to be really flexible so that we can add on different things as the building grows and as people's needs grows and as technology just changes.
So now, in terms of cost of the development, then did that radically increase the cost of development, or are you able to sort of offset the initial cost by the fact that it's going to reduce sort of the level of care and maintenance in the long run?
Well, it means you can have a smaller staff team. So if you don't have to have staff that are responding to call bells, perhaps, or responding to emails or phone calls from residents because they need their blinds adjusted, you can have a staff team that's then focused on what really needs to be done in the home, instead of, adjusting the stereo volume or things like that. And lots of people have devices already, and they just don't realize how powerful they are. Think of the remote control for your TV. That thing 50 years ago would probably seem a lot like these devices do now. It seems like it's really fancy and it's really powerful, and it's something that we'll probably all have in our homes eventually very soon.
And some of us, already do. So in specifically when we're talking about the actual app, are you guys using like a Google Home? Are you guys using an Alexa?
Yeah, good, Rob, I'm not sure about the app. So we're working with a company called Digital Lifestyles, and I believe it's proprietary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell us how long has Inclusio been in development for?
Oh gosh, it feels like we've been dreaming about it for forever, but we were part of something called the Resolve campaign here locally. So it was 9 housing agencies in the city had been going around for years asking for money to build more affordable housing, because Calgary has had a 10-year plan to end homelessness, and as part of that plan we just knew we needed to build some more housing that was affordable for people. And what we were hearing from funders was that, gee, you guys keep coming here and every day there's a new fundraiser in the office that wants money for housing. Why don't you get together and coordinate your asks? So that's what happened. So 9 partners came together, the Resolve campaign was launched, and that was a big part of the reason why this building happened in the first place. So we were able to fundraise with the Resolve campaign, and a number of other buildings have popped up in Calgary that are affordable housing, really unique to particular agencies. But this building, we built it fast. We did the groundbreaking in September of 2016. The construction of the building's done now, and we're just getting it operationally ready for folks to come in. The head chef has been hired and is getting the kitchen set up, and the staff is in the building now. So it won't be long. It'll just be a few weeks really until we see our first residents moving in, which is super exciting.
Ooh, fantastic. Wow.
So you have room for 45 residents, and how many staff live on site as well?
There are no staff living on site. We have staff in the building 24/7, but they don't live there.
So in terms of development then, did all the tech that's being built in, did that add to the amount of time that it took to develop, or not really?
I don't think it did. I would say it didn't, but maybe the builder would say something else. But I think it adds to the complexity for sure. Like, I didn't realize that at the time, and this is the first time I've worked in an organization that's built a house like this or built a property like this. You have to think about the types of blinds that you purchase. And of course, when you're purchasing 45 blinds of this type, you have to order them well in advance. So things like, you couldn't just go to IKEA and get blinds, right? You had to get some blinds that had to interface with this technology. You had to have light switches that connected to this technology. You have to have door controls that connect to this technology. So some thought has to happen in advance. I would think that Mike will probably tell you that it's going to be a lot easier to do this kind of work in advance like we've done than trying to take an existing place and modify it later.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Now, going forward, do you see this as being a fairly common way of developing spaces like this?
Totally. I think that this is something we would want to see in any future builds that we would do. It's just going to be so helpful for people, and so empowering too, to allow people just to be able to have control over their own environment. I mean, we all know what it's like to have an office or home on the south side of the building versus the north side of the building, and just being able to adjust, the temperature controls in your own room is just something that people should be able to do. It's just part of being in a home and being comfortable and feeling like you belong. And we really, really want that for our residents. We want them to feel like they have a sense of belonging and community in this beautiful new place. And that comes with being able to have some autonomy in your own space.
So is there also, like in the app, or still like a call bell type system where if something is not working the way it's supposed to be, they can still reach a staff member?
That's a better Mike question potentially. Okay. I mean, we do have emergency plans in place for, like, if something happens with a resident where they might, slip or fall, but that would be separate from this system. Right. I guess if you're asking if they have trouble with the technology, then there's processes in place for that to be corrected to do some troubleshooting and such.
Yeah, because I know, like, even with some home automation for, Joe Public, sometimes, your door lock may not unlock. So then what do? You call the locksmith and he comes and kicks your door open. So just kind of wonder what the alternatives are.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I don't know the details of the service level agreement, but
sure.
Perhaps Mike does, yeah.
Well, can you tell us a little bit more about what other services, sort of getting off Inclusio, but tell us a little bit what other kind of services and programs that Accessible Housing does provide?
Sure. Well, the housing that we provide in community has sort of evolved over the years. As I mentioned before, we started in the 70s with this one particular 12-unit home, but now we also operate a 10-unit home in Calgary that's considered a permanent supportive housing model. So it's for long-term support for residents who've basically left homelessness, and maybe they've got as well some mental health issues and addictions issues there. So there's a team there that helps support them. There's some shared accommodations. They've got a shared kitchen, a shared living room, and shared washrooms. We have a program called Chinook House, where we have residents that their average tenancy there is well over 18 years, which is really fantastic. So it's people stay there. They don't want to leave. It's so good. That's a number of apartments where we just provide some help getting folks in and out of bed, or doing just some sort of the daily living stuff like teeth brushing and getting dressed and showered. And then people basically head off into the world and go to their jobs and go to school. We've got a program which is housing with intensive support, which is called Bridge to Home, which is a program where we pair individuals with a caseworker, and they work between 12 to 24 months. It's intensive case management for people who have also left homelessness, and we're making sure that they're getting settled in an appropriate place and community. So they're really in stabilized housing is the thinking. So it's using a housing first approach, and we help get them just more interconnected in their community, get connected with the dock, get connected with food, make sure that they're getting some income, and just sort of stabilizing them and making sure they're more embedded into the community. And then, as I mentioned previously, we've got this renovations program called RAD Renovations, which helps people with low incomes apply and get a really awesome home modification. So we would maybe do some door widening, build a ramp out front, or do a washroom modification for someone who's a wheelchair user and really struggling to get in and out of their home safely, or even to use the washroom safely. And we've got a housing registry that's part of our website. We've got a newer initiative called accessibleuniversity.com, which is a place where anybody, even in Vancouver, can visit accessibleuniversity.com and find out how to make their home residence more accessible. And we just got lots going on. Did that give you a good sense of
absolutely. Wow,
mattering of things?
Very busy. Well, let me ask you this, and you may or may not know the answer to this, but is your particular organization fairly rare? Because I don't know of anything that's like that here in BC at all.
Yeah, I think that we are. We definitely try to look for other organizations like us, and there are certainly loads of housing organizations. Seems to me that in my time here, I've found that there's housing organizations that are looking for solutions for seniors.
Yes.
There are housing organizations that are around affordability, and certainly we're about affordability as well, but we're very unique in that we're helping connect people to some barrier-free homes as well. So I think we are unique in that way. I don't know of anybody else here locally at all. And maybe in BC that's the case as well.
Okay, another question for you. That's kind of a speculative question, but do you feel that the sort of the home automation aspect of Inclusio, do you sort of see that as being able to be applied to other sort of assisted living scenarios that would really, again, save money in terms of staffing and stuff, or even elderly senior care? Like,
so you're asking if it would be used in other places?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
It helps that the individuals that we serve are really, they're leading edge. We've got clients that we work with that are going to university, that are going to college, that are working jobs, that are driving cars. Like, they're really, really capable. So having the technology is going to be, I think, pretty easy.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right thing for seniors, but I think that there is ways of making it adaptable and modifiable to a bunch of different types of groups. We've got lots of residents who are just technology junkies, and they've already been using like their devices that you mentioned earlier, right? Like the Google Home and things like that, and they're using them really easily and quite well.
So is Inclusio now full, or do you have a waiting list?
We haven't opened doors yet and haven't moved in the first people, so that's exciting. We do have some people that are ready to go and can't wait to get in there very soon in the next couple of weeks. But we are still accepting applications, and there's a process online where people can submit their application. There's frequently asked questions online as well, so there's plenty of information if people want to find out more. There's a video that they can watch, a little construction video, and some renders, some beautiful pictures of the inside of the home as well.
Great. And actually, why don't you go ahead and just tell people where they can actually get all that information from?
Sure. You want to go to Accessible Housing. So that's accessiblehousing.ca/inclusio/. So just hit accessiblehousing.com and Inclusio will come up pretty quick on the homepage for you.
And is the application process fairly lengthy, or is it easy to get through? Or
it does require some information about the person's health. We do require that home care has an assessment with the individual, and that helps us understand what the person's actual needs are. Are they going to need 2 people to do a transfer? We just need to get a sense of people's care.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, so there is a bit of information that is a bit more than what you would expect in your typical apartment down the street.
And so maybe I zoned out earlier, which it's Monday. It could happen. You did mention you've hired the chef. What other services does Inclusio offer to its residents?
Yeah, so there's an awesome head chef there now, providing a couple of meals a day. There is 24/7 care. So that means that in the night, if there is some sort of emergency or people need turning as well, that there's staff in the building to do that. So that's really fantastic. There's community spaces on every floor. So something that we had in our old building was like sort of a communal kitchen, and we found that was really beneficial for people that were just able to sort of connect and chat over food. So we've got community spaces on every floor, which is a big part of the priority for the building. And then we've just got like people in the building that are going to be there to help people do a bit of systems navigation. So if you maybe needed to apply for a little bit more funding from somewhere, or you needed help setting up something with your dock, there's somebody there to help you with those kinds of things. Did you guys watch the video on the page there? Because it maybe gives you a sense too.
Yeah, I did.
Even the cabinetry is kind of cool, right? Like, so the cabinetry in each of the rooms is higher than normal, so that a person with a power chair can get under there really easily, get to the sink really easily. The showers are just a roll-in shower. We have got a wellness room with a therapy tub, so that people can have a bath when they want to. There's 2 elevators, not 1. We would have. That we're trying to go above code here, above building code, and surpass that, so that people can really experience a sense of home and a safe place to live.
I think it'd be really great that if there's 2 wheelchair users approaching each other in the hall, they'll be able to pass each other.
Yep, exactly. Well, and we think, actually, it's funny you say that, because one of our person that had lived in the old building and is coming to the new building, he's been through it himself. Yeah. We had some of those folks come in a few weeks back, maybe a month ago, and he said, yeah, the wide hallways, you can fit 2 or even 3 wheelchairs, like they can pass each other. I'm like, that's great. There's going to be races in the hallway.
Exactly.
That's what that means.
Power chair races down the hall.
Yeah, totally.
That's excellent.
Oh, we've put ceiling tracks in every room over top of the bed, so that people with severe mobility limitations can be lifted onto their bed with an overhead lift. That's something that we put in every room. We ensured that in the washrooms that there was all kinds of reinforcement around the toilets, for example, so that grab bars could be installed really well and just really solid, right? So we've tried to think about all of these things ahead of time. The building's concrete construction. I mean, it's safe and quiet, beautiful neighborhood. It's going to be amazing. So I can't wait to talk to you again when we've got some residents that you can talk to, and they can tell you all these things for themselves.
Yeah, actually, we'd love that. Let me ask you this though: is this the first development that you guys have sort of developed from the ground up?
Well, we did the one in the 70s,
Right.
but yeah, this is the first one in a long time. The other properties we acquired later were properties that were existing, right? So
Right.
this is the first thing that we've built since 1974.
Yeah, and it must be so much easier just to, like you said, to build all the accessibility in at the at the building level as opposed to renovating things.
100%. Even outlets and switches. We put the electrical outlets aren't way down at the bottom of the floor like they are in my house. They're up 2 feet on the wall, so somebody can put their lamp
Right.
outlet in the
Right.
wall. It's at a higher. It just makes sense, right?
Right.
So it's definitely about doing it as early as you can, and sure, doing it some digital technology costs more up front, but who cares? Like I can't imagine having built this home without it. It's going to be better for the people that live there. It's going to be better for the people that work there.
Yeah, and it's interesting that, you were mentioning the ceiling tracks and being able to lift people. That's not something I would have ever thought of. So the attention to detail sounds like it's over and above anything else.
We even have heated sidewalks. I don't know if you've heard, but Calgary's had a little bit of snow.
I've heard
A little
that.
bit, yeah.
This year. It's actually becoming this Twitter storm constantly. There's a couple of activists on Twitter lately that are just after the city about the snow clearing.
Yes.
So we invested in some technology to keep the sidewalks clear
Wow.
of snow, because even with the best snow removal, they can only really come once a day. So
Yep.
we wanted people to be able to still get to the handy bus or out onto the sidewalk so that they can roll down the street and hop on the bus. And that meant that we wanted to have heated sidewalks, so they're always clear there now. Like, what an amazing thing to have figured out early on.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So were there any things when you were in the development process where you guys kind of forgot about one thing and you're like, oh wait a minute, well, we've completely forgot about heated sidewalks?
Well, I think generally we even though the building is large, it would have been nice to have the community spaces be even a bit bigger, or have the patios be a bit bigger. We basically filled the footprint of the property. The property, we had a long-term lease with the City of Calgary. The City of Calgary was very generous in selling us the property at an incredible discount, and then we've pretty much filled the footprint. So really couldn't get any bigger here, but it would have been nice to have even a bit more room, and we would have liked to have maybe had some 1 or 2 bedroom apartments. These are studio
Right.
apartments and studio plus apartments, and they're really roomy and they're really gorgeous. But I think the community spaces, we would have liked to have maybe had some more room there as well, because you might want to gather all of your residents together and throw a giant party at the same time and have the neighbors in. I don't know. But it's not meant to be in a party space. It's a house.
Right.
It's a home.
So what are your current plans going forward?
The plans are move folks in very soon. We're going to be moving people in a few at a time, so a few per week for the next couple of months, and just get people living in the space and just see how it's going. And of course, as probably know from having moved into places, there's tweaks along the way that we'll have to make, and we expect to have this really smooth running machine here this year. So we're super excited to meet lots of new residents and have the neighbors around Inclusio get to know them, and vice versa. So it's going to be awesome. We're pretty excited to open this building.
And do you have any new projects similar to Inclusio coming up in the future?
Not at this point. No, we just want to we want to operate it and run it. And I think in a year, what we want to do is be able to look back and sort of think about how we can now use this, leverage this building and amplify it, and have other people come see it, either duplicate it, learn from it, replicate this in other places in the world. It's definitely something that's worth doing. So we would love to share the story of Inclusio, the success story of Inclusio, in a year when we look back, and share some stories of the residents as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll stay in touch, because it would actually be fascinating to have somebody on the show who lives there. So maybe we'll
really
plan
cool.
to do that for in the coming months.
Good.
Excellent. Well, you know what, Anita, thank you so much for joining us and chatting with us.
Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate you reaching out.
Thank you very much,
No problem.
Anita.
Thank you.
And joining us now is Mr. Mike Dummer, who works for Digital Lifestyles, who was, of course, the home automation and accessibility developer for Inclusio. So, hey, well, thanks for coming on and joining us today.
You're welcome. Nice to be here.
Tell us a little bit about Digital Lifestyles in general, just about what you guys do overall. I mean, I know you guys had a huge hand in the home automation and accessibility aspects of Inclusio, but just give us an overview of what the company does in general.
Well, started out, obviously a lot of this technology wasn't around, so we started out really as a technology cabling, audio video company. As technology progressed, a decade ago, there was lighting control, various automation. There was nothing that was, there was no sort of all-encompassing automation system out there. It was all, we would build things, we would write our own software to get what we wanted. And that brings us to sort of the last number of years, 3 to 5 years, and we've been heavily involved in the automation world. We do corporate stuff, we do boardrooms, we do commercial, we do residential, and a big part of our business now is doing the accessible systems.
So have it, because the technology, like you said, has been changing so much over the past 10 years, and I would say that even over the past 2 years, there's been some real leaps forward. Has it been a challenge for you guys to sort of keep up with the technology?
Honestly, it's a challenge for anybody. When you say, well, even in the last year, there's probably been something from 9 o'clock to noon today. Right? And, that is a lot to wrap your head around. I think one of the downfalls of, that sort of pace of development is that nobody ever gets really good and competent
right.
at what they're really trying to accomplish, because there's every number of months, or it could be, software updates, and that could be weekly, monthly, every 6 months, something significantly changes. So it's a real challenge to get really good at one thing, because those goalposts are constantly being moved.
Right.
So in terms of, what we have to do here, we have to devote an incredible amount of time to testing.
Mm-hmm.
and trying it. Although, let's take, for instance, a company like Apple or Samsung. They're doing the research and development on this stuff.
Right.
The big research, could be Amazon, whatever. But they throw that out there to the end user, and it's up to the end user or the integrator to decide how you want to apply that technology, or how you want to use it, how it integrates with all of these other technologies. What I like to tell people is, you've got 100 companies out there. There's more than 100, but we'll use 100 as an example. And not one of them gets together and says, we should actually make this stuff all interoperable. They all have their own way of doing it with their own thing, and they don't give any thought to the fact that maybe this should work with Samsung, should work with Panasonic, should work with Amazon, should work with Apple. Doesn't work like that. Everybody's trying to build their own ecosystem,
right?
And no one ecosystem or no one manufacturer has all the answers. And there's some progress being made in that, but very difficult. And quite frankly, that's our business. We actually make sense of all that stuff. We figure out what's going to work together. We test it, and we make it work.
And that was going to be my question. Are you guys using proprietary software, or do you use like Control4? Do you integrate with HomeKit or some of these Zigbee, Z-Wave type stuff?
Part of it is our own software. Part of it is, our own code. We use, as the backbone of our systems, we use a URC system, which is Universal Remote Control. They're probably the oldest guys out there. They also own most of the control codes or database in the world. They've developed that. So chances are, if you picked up a remote control in the past, they made it. Might say have somebody else's name on it, but it's them.
Right.
So we worked very closely with them in terms of developing systems for accessibility. They've been extremely helpful in coming to the table and doing things that they probably wouldn't normally do. I should probably give a shout out to their Canadian distributor, Staub Electronics. They represent that company in Canada. They have a fantastic research and development arm as well that have given us a lot of assistance. And quite frankly, we take bits and pieces of all of these other companies and manufacturers, and we nail them all together. we've got some systems now. Well, we've been doing this for a number of years, so it's not new to us, but we've refined it to the point where we know what's going to work and what's going to work all of the time.
And, Rob and I have talked about this ecosystem idea before. I've got a Google Home. I've got a couple Amazon Echo Dots. I've got an Apple TV. I haven't really committed to one ecosystem yet, and I don't want to. I want, like you mentioned, everything to be able to talk to each other no matter what device I have. So
right.
how far off do you think that is, or are we there already?
Unless you're a professional in the industry, you're not there. So for an end user, somebody that's going to go out and buy retail or, sort of regular retail product, like say Apple HomeKit, it's not there. I mean, you're talking, the things that we're talking about are lights, shading, locks,
right.
door openers, climate control,
right. So
all sort of these subsystems that are out there. And there's nothing out there right now that as a homeowner, you could go out and you could say, okay, I'll go out to one place and I'll buy all of these devices and it'll nail it all together and I'll be able to use it seamlessly and easily. Not happening. That's just not there yet. They like to tell you that it is. Let's talk about, the Google, your Google Voice Control or your Amazon Voice Control. So people they erroneously, I think, misunderstand that is the device that's doing the heavy lifting. In other words, all I have to do is I have to buy this device, I plug it into my house, it connects to my network, and my lights turn on and off, and I can control my climate, I can move my blinds up and down, I
right.
can unlock my doors, I can lock my doors, and I can turn on my TV, and I can change my channels. What people fail to understand, and this is not, these companies don't do a good job of actually getting that message out there, is it's simply an overlay, and you have to have the infrastructure of all those individual parts and pieces for that voice control to operate. In other words, you've got to have a remote controllable blind, and then you've got to have a piece of software that goes with that blind so that I can just use my Amazon Echo to control it.
And a perfect example of that, before I'm just going to interrupt you here, is I just bought a TP-Link smart plug because my wife is out of town, and I don't know if my lights are on and off. So I have my Amazon Echo upstairs. I hooked up my smart plug, and lo and behold, you're right. I had to download and install a CASA app, which talks to the TP-Link, which then connected to my Wi-Fi, which then connects to my Amazon Echo once I enable the skill. So it's a little bit involved.
Right, and it's one light.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what we do. And if you're, to put this in context, if you're, if it's an accessibility system, we're not doing this with just one lamp or one light and one door. We're enabling the entire house.
Right.
So depending on the size of the place or the complexity of the place, you're dealing with, you could be dealing with 25, 30 blinds. You could be dealing with 60 or 70 different lights and combination of lights. You might have 4 or 5 doors.
Right.
Wow.
And on and on. So generally that product that you're going to buy off of the shelf, it's not designed to do that. It
Right.
really is designed to do 1 or 2 devices.
Wow, and you're right. The marketing really does make you think that you can just go to Home Hardware, pick up a smart, a light lamp or something, and that's just going to seamlessly work with your home. I mean, they really don't divulge the fact that that it's a little bit more complicated than that.
No, it's a lot more complicated. What's funny is it's almost like an error of omission. They don't actually tell you that it's going to do all this stuff, but they don't tell you it's not.
Right. Yeah.
So everybody being like real optimistic when they buy something, it's like, well, it doesn't say that it doesn't do this, so it must be pretty easy and it must do it. Well, therefore, I can buy this thing for $60 or $150 and it's going to do all of that. And the reality is, it just isn't.
and then you didn't do your research, and you find out you need a hub.
Well, yeah, you need a hub, and then you need a much more robust network. And then when you add up all the devices that you need, like, so, you take lighting, for instance, there's smart light bulbs, and there's some switches that you can do. Count up all the switches in your house and try to change them all.
Yeah, it's definitely something you want to hire an electrician for.
Yeah, but then your electrician probably isn't software savvy.
Right.
So now you've got all the drivers, and then you've got scenes and macros and various things like that you're going to want to write.
Yeah.
So it's definitely there's a lot of how do I put this? There's a lot of skill involved, but it's a very narrow and deep skill set.
So do you feel like this is partly because we have all these different companies that are kind of posturing themselves to try to sort of get ahead of everybody else, because it's not a new industry, but I think it's a little bit more, it's new to the mainstream, I think. Do you get the sense that any of that's going to get better?
So it's very new to the mainstream, and again, it's not like all of these devices, or it's more of an idea than something that the average person can execute. It's a transitional technology right now where that's what I call it, a transitional technology. Unless you're a professional doing this, you're going to encounter a lot of frustration getting this stuff to work. Wow. It's more for an enthusiast. Mm-hmm. Until you can, we'll call it the do-it-yourselfer. You can make some headway as a do-it-yourselfer, but you're never ever going to be able to come up with a smooth running sort of global solution for your house or your business. We know how hard that is, and believe me, it is not easy. There's a lot of money, time, and effort spent on making this stuff work. And if you saw how difficult, like let's take, like you said, Control4, or what we use, a URC, a Universal Remote Control, or a Crestron, or any of these companies, the amount of R&D and development that goes into one of those software and hardware systems is just astronomical. There's
Right.
no way that, when you look at that and you understand that, you quickly, you can relate that. There's no way I'm picking up a $150 speaker and it's just going to work all of that stuff. It's just not happening.
Right. Yeah.
Do you foresee a time when it's going to be better, or have you even noticed over the past year that some of it is starting to move? They're starting to sort of move in line with each other.
You know what? I think about this all the time. I would hope that, in the next 5 years, that this stuff is going to be far enough along that an average user can take this and get some usefulness out of it, like so that it's meaningful. But I've been saying that for 15 years. I think until there is some standards, overall standards in place, I think it's going to be very difficult. Think about it this way. If you were, let's say you had a 100-room hotel. With the product offerings out there today, you could put a different brand of automation in every room. You can have 100 different systems. They're going to operate differently. They're going to program differently. They're going to put together differently, and they're going to use different parts. So extrapolate that out to your general public in everybody's house, condo, apartment, whatever. And so how do you keep up with software development for something like that?
Right.
How do you service something like that? There's just too many players, too many choices, and everybody's doing it their own way as opposed to following a set of unified standards. And that's going to have to happen.
So let's talk Inclusio specifically. 45 rooms. Was this the biggest development that you guys have been involved with so far?
It certainly is for the accessibility. The way we looked at it is, it's 45 individual residences. So in terms of that, it wasn't a stretch for us. What was a bit of a stretch, and I don't think at this point it's been done, is that we've got a single internet or network pipeline coming into the building, and we were able to divide that up into 46 areas, 45 for the residents and one for the management company, and operate 45, we've got 45 self-contained apartments in there, and they're all completely automated. And every single person has their own security, secure connection. They've got their own application that they use. They're all identical, and they all work the same way, but they're all individual and they're all private.
Right. So could you give us an idea of what each room would feature in terms of automation?
Yeah, some of the stuff that I've mentioned before. So, one of the big ones, quite frankly, is the physical opening and closing of the doors. They're obviously it's a commercial building, so there's codes, there's fire codes that have to be followed. So the doors are fairly heavy. Not easy for somebody with a disability, or impossible, quite frankly, to open and close. So what we did is we managed to integrate a residential automatic door opener into the system, and that can be operated via a single push button or an app on the phone, or if somebody wanted to, by voice control. But that's dovetailed in there with the lighting, with automatic shades and blinds, complete control over their entertainment. So any TV, Apple TV, Netflix, music, that's all integrated. And it's all, like I said, it's very tightly integrated, so that, we've created certain scenes in there, a certain button on, could be a tablet or a phone, and it says good morning. You hit the good morning button, the blinds come up halfway, the lights come up at a certain level, the door might unlock, the TV will come onto a certain channel, favorite, and then they can operate it from there. And we have the same thing for good night. And again, we have that operating in a bunch of different ways. Can be a handheld device, or like a smartphone or a tablet. We've got things in there like a simple button. You know what a Staples Easy button looks like? Those little red buttons that you tap and it says
Right.
That was easy.
Yep.
We've got something that's very similar to that. We've got a couple per unit in there, and we can program those buttons to do any of the functions that I just talked about. So if you want to make that your good morning button, boom, you just hit that. If you want to open and close your door with it, we can program it to do that. So sometimes it's going to be specific to that resident, or we can personalize it, I guess would be a better way to look at it. But everything that you would normally have to physically do, other than sort of cook your meals, we have automated for them. So somebody with very limited mobility, if you can move a finger or you can use voice control, you can operate your environment.
So, developing that software that can run all that, that must have been a huge, huge task.
It was a huge challenge in that we have, there's a lot of common doors in there as well. So they have patios, they have common areas and patios off each floor, and the general contractor decided it would be a great idea, and it certainly is a great idea, to put openers on all of those doors. So, we had to seamlessly make it so that a resident could leave their own apartment where they have full control, and without changing to a different app or doing anything differently, that they could just now operate the doors, the common doors within the buildings, or that they could let somebody in and out later on at night from the front door, from the same application, the same way they do their individual apartment.
So the coding got pretty intricate.
It did, and the networking, because this is all IP controlled, that was a huge challenge. But like I said, we've got that thing working flawlessly. We had, I'm not going to lie to you. We had some help on that. We, the manufacturer of the networking and, our suppliers, they all came to the table. They put their best guys on it. And these are some of the smartest minds in the industry, quite frankly. We were very, very fortunate to have that type of help, right to, at a manufacturing level, where these guys, they're engineers, they're research and development engineers, are saying, we would give them a problem. We'd say, we would like to do this. We would like to have this happen. And they would come back, in 2 weeks, and they'd say, okay, here's how we can do it. So we headed off a lot of potential problems, and we gave them a lot more functionality because of that. And we're not done. I mean, this is an ongoing project.
So from the time Inclusio and Digital Lifestyle partnered up, what was the time frame to get all this in and working?
Well, there was the construction process, the planning construction process was probably a year to a year and a half. We actually deployed these in about 6 weeks and had them all working. We built everything here in our shop first and then deployed them all into the residences.
Wow.
It's a very small footprint. We've got this down to a very small amount of hardware, equipment hardware, I guess, and it's sort of up out of the way. It's, we can monitor and service this for the most part from our office.
Mm-hmm.
If one of the residents messages us and says, hey, I'm having trouble doing something, we can look in and we can determine probably what it is, and most of the time we can fix it from here.
Right. I mean, that was going to be my next question was, once the construction is done and the residents move in, I mean, your stories isn't done because you'll still be, contracted to actually provide support and maintain the system.
Yeah. What we've learned, over the years of doing this, and we've got quite a number of these out here, and we've worked with these individuals. We've run across some great folks here that we've put these systems in for. And, quite frankly, we've refined this to the point where we're not doing something just for the sake of doing it. We're doing something because it's useful and meaningful, and we try and simplify it to the point where there's very little that can or should go wrong. Having said that, there always is something that's going to go wrong.
Right.
We further refined it to the point where we can solve most of that through a network connection here directly to our office. The stuff that we can't, we get out there, and it's not far from our office, quite frankly, anyway. So, we send a tech out, and honestly, most of that it's user error or, it's power related or something like that. So, we've got a fair amount of experience doing this now. We've got a lot of miles under our belt. We sort of know what to expect.
Right.
And sort of further to that, I guess, is that, they've got a management company, or Accessible Housing Calgary, a great bunch of folks. What we do with them is we're in the process of training some of their employees to deal with the day-to-day operation of these systems, so that they'll be able to take over most of the basic functionality and the basic maintenance on it.
So once Inclusio is all finished, do you guys have anything else, any other big projects that are coming up?
We always have individual projects. Quite frankly, what we do is we take, a portion of our income from the other sections of our business, and we donate a lot of these systems out there to people that need them the most.
Wow.
So we've always got some on the go.
And
so essentially, we rob Peter to pay Paul in a lot of cases. So, the people who need the systems the most generally are not the people that can pay for them, so to speak. So, one of the things that I mandated a number of years ago here is that we were going to take a portion of everything that we made in other areas of the business, and with the help of our suppliers as well, we're going to find the people that can benefit and need these systems the most, And, if there's a need there, we're going to find a way to get them something. We can't do everybody like that, of course, but, we do quite a number, we donate quite a number of these systems every year.
Wow, it's fantastic.
Quite frankly, that's how we learned how to do, we learned the intricacies of technology and disabilities, were these donated systems where we could work with these folks over a period of a year or two, almost on a daily and weekly basis, to refine. And what I mean by that is, how are you going to use it? What's important to you? What can you do? What can't you do? What level of technology and environmental control do you need? Would this be good? Would this be nicer if we did it this way? Here's what you can do right now, but would it be better if you could do this? And then they start to catch on, and they start to give you all the feedback. And it's like, hey, I can do it this way, but it would be really nice if I could do this. Or could we add this?
Yeah, and it must be tricky because each individual has, their own specific requirements, right? So you have to be able to adapt to that.
They do, but what we did learn over the last 4 or 5 years, quite frankly, is that you can distill this down to one overall and sort of encompassing system, and you can get 99% of what everybody needs in that one, and then there's just a very small percentage of personalization required after that.
Right.
I think, and this is a little bit off topic, but boy, when you get you combine the technology that we have at our fingertips now with a self-driving vehicle.
Ooh,
and
yeah.
This is a huge game changer for somebody that's in a chair.
Wow, no kidding, yeah.
Like, if you think about that, you have full control over your house and your home environment that, for the most part, you can do on your own now. And then you add in mobility and transportation like that, where, you can sort of just drive out and your vehicle will take you somewhere. I see, looking forward, the roadblock there is going to be all the public buildings and that aren't set up for this.
Right.
It's obviously, that conversation needs to happen. But, you look at some of these other technologies, like, for instance, self-driving vehicles. People look at that and they go, oh, well, I'm going to be so much more productive going to work, or, I can sleep, I can do this, I can do that. And right now, all anybody thinks of is able-bodied people.
Right.
That's what it's for. Think of the impact for somebody that can't drive right now, that relies on another service or family members or assisted mobility vehicles and a driver to get somewhere. This takes all that stuff off the table.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm totally blind myself, Mike, and I can't wait for the day.
Yeah. Well, interesting. So my mom has been blind for probably 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, if you could you could get to the car, you could just tell it where to go.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there, just think that's such a huge game changer, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Sure. And you combine that with stuff like beacon technology, where you can walk into the mall and then now you're having beacons. And so now you're having your smartphone or your smart cane or whatever telling you, oh, hey, the Gap is to your left. It could really change the shape of mobility, going forward.
It does. It requires, some thought to sit down, look at all of these different technologies and then make sense of them. And like I said at the beginning, does it make sense? Is it meaningful? Can it be used? Is it easy to use? If it ticks those boxes, it's like, well, you know what? Why aren't we doing this?
Yeah.
Right.
Why hasn't anybody brought that? I don't ever hear that with self-driving vehicles. That's going to be, for somebody who can't see and can't drive. And there's a lot of people with like macular degeneration, elderly people or whatever that, you don't have a driver's license, they can't be driving, they don't see well enough, various things like that. That solves that problem.
Yep.
It's a huge market out there.
Absolutely.
Nobody talks about it.
But, it sounds like part of the frustrating thing about all these, these burgeoning technologies is the fact that everybody seems to be developing them that themselves. Yeah, there's no real sort of overall sort of planned to put these technologies in place by one person, so that they can everything can work together.
It's very fragmented and fractured. It's a monumental task to get all of these guys to play by the same rules, because you're talking about, companies in different countries, different cultures. A lot of these technologies are developed, say in Asia, in China or Japan. And, then a part of that technology is then embedded in something that's then made by a U.S. company. Like, you look at Apple, Samsung, very closely related on a manufacturing level, but compete, and their products are completely different.
Right.
But yet Samsung makes a lot of the guts and infrastructure for Apple products.
Right.
But they do it on purpose. They want to capture you and for you to become part of their ecosystem, so that they have a captive audience. If everything, I actually don't even know how to phrase this. If everything was done to a certain standard, then every company would be required to compete on merit only, I think.
Right.
Pretty scary thought.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Probably
I'm
off topic here, but if you think about that, if everything, if product A, product B, and product C all generally work the same way, well, you're going to make a decision based on your decision making has changed.
Right, exactly.
You're looking at price, reliability, all these things. Like, you're buying a refrigerator. A refrigerator, they all work the same way.
Right.
These automation products, they don't.
Yeah.
It's like once you're in, if you're buying into, an iOS or an Apple environment, well, you're bought in, and that's what you're going to do.
That's right.
If you're an Android guy, well, then you're bought into that Android system. It's not made to work together. Your app that's developed for Android doesn't work with iOS. That's the issue that we have.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see if this is something that needs to be addressed, going forward. Because I don't think a lot of people, especially people in the mainstream, outside of the professional world, nobody knows this. Nobody really understands this yet. So
no, and I see that's a big hole that everybody's going to fall into. And let's face it. I mean, for the way that this type of product is marketed, there's a lot of stuff out there it's price driven. So, they say if you look at it, you'll say, well, it's a starter kit.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, you get a hub, and you get a couple of light switches, and you get another piece. And you can go home, you can install it. You spend a couple of days screwing around with it, you get it configured. What they don't tell you is, okay, so now you're turning off one or two lights, and you can do a couple other sort of gadget-oriented things. And if you wanted to expand that to actually encompass your entire home, well, you're going to be paying probably more than you would for a professional system. That's just how it works, and it won't work as well. That's the dilemma right now. That's an issue that I see for sure.
Well, and like you mentioned, even if you just go with Philips Hue light bulbs, $60 a pop or whatever they are, and you want to do your entire house. Add them up. Yeah. It gets pricey quickly.
Quite frankly, that's still not going to work as well, and it's not as good or an elegant solution as changing out your switches.
Right.
And having, like some keypads in there.
Right.
Because you still want to be able to operate your lighting. Then you have sort of redundant backup, for instance. You can always just go to the wall and turn it on and off.
Exactly. And the one example I heard recently was that, if you're doing just your light bulb and that light bulb is controlled by a switch on the wall, that switch on the wall always has to be in the on position, because if somebody walks by and turns it off, now your voice control is not going to turn that light back on because you didn't do the switch, you just did the bulb.
Well, you know what? You brought up a really good point there. and that's with what we in the industry call it doesn't give you a status feedback.
Right.
Because that's a dumb switch in the middle, and the dumb switch can't let your automation system know whether it's in the on or off position.
Right.
So, that's one of the things that we work very, very diligently with, is that everything that we do, that automation system knows whether a device is on or off. The user will never know. Never has to even bother with that. It just works.
Yeah, nice.
Wow, fascinating stuff.
To taking a look at your challenges that you have, or look at the challenges that somebody, whatever disability that they have, and generally there's a technology these days out there to alleviate a lot of that. And I would encourage people to look at that, as opposed to just what we've seen is a lot of status quo. As I've been working in this industry a little bit, I see the technologies that they're working with, for instance, in the healthcare facilities or whatever. These technologies have been around for years and years, and they haven't been updated. There are other solutions out there, and don't be afraid to just go out there and ask or push for a solution. It's like I personally, we really enjoy the fact that our clients out there, we encourage them to say, I don't like how this works. I need something better for this, or I need this to work a different way. And then it forces you to think about that and to come up with a solution. And,
right.
For the most part, there is a solution out there. There's amazing things that can be done to make people's lives so much better. It's just a matter of asking. Right. And then, really thinking about it. If you can think about it, we can probably do it. At this point, might not be the most elegant way right now, but we'll get you a solution.
Mike, we want to thank you so much for coming on. This has been a great conversation. I love it.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on anytime.
Tell us where people can find Digital Lifestyles on the web and how they can contact you.
It's it's digilife.ca, so that's digilife.ca. If you go to the website, all the contact info is there.
Excellent. And you mainly develop in the Calgary area, I'm assuming, or do you guys go anywhere?
We can actually go anywhere. We're working on something right now where, if somebody in another province or another part of the country wanted to take advantage of these technologies, we're going to be in a position where we can deliver that.
Perfect. Okay, thanks. Thanks again, Mike. We'd probably love to have you on again sometime and talk more about it, especially, as this technology changes.
Perfect. Anytime, guys. I'd be happy to do it.
All right. Thanks so much, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Like he mentioned, a lot of people, including myself, don't think about what's involved. You see the commercials for the Amazon Echo, you see the commercials for the Google Home or the Home Kit stuff, and you're like, okay, that's great. Let's get started. I'll buy this kit for, $100, and I get a light bulb, and I get this, and I get that. But with my smart plug I bought last week, I plug it into the wall, and then it configures itself to my wireless network. Right? I connect to it. And then I got to enable the skill on my Amazon Echo app. So I enable the skill on my Echo app, and now I can say, Echo, turn the light on, and it makes it click and the light goes on. I can say, Echo, turn the light off, and it clicks and the light goes off. But I can't say, Echo, is the light on? Because it doesn't understand that.
Right.
The other thing I can't do was I can't really create scenes and customize it. The best I can do is have it come on at sunset and turn off at sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice to be able to program, schedule a time so I want it to come on at 5:30 and turn off at 10:30 when I go to bed. Right? That level of customization
just isn't
there unless you're
sure
digging deeper into a system that will do that for you.
Yeah, well, I think what was shocking to me was the fact that, and I didn't even think about, but really, I sort of bought into all the marketing where I could just, if I wanted to, I was just under the assumption that I could go to Home Hardware, I could pick up a smart thermostat, some smart bulbs, whatever, the stuff that's out there, like Nest, for example, and just install it, and it's just going to plug in and work fantastically. I didn't really think about the fact that there would be software to be downloaded that would need to be, like, there are
apps still. Like I said, with my smart plug, I had to download their app. Now with Nest, because it is a Google product, if you're using your Google Home, it may just be a matter of, connecting the wires and saying, okay, Google, set temperature to 25.
Not you, Google.
And it does.
Looks like that device hasn't been set up yet.
Yeah, we know.
Open the Google Home app and go to Home Control to add a device.
But see, there you go. You need the Google Home app. You got to go in and add the device.
Sure.
It's a little involved.
Sure. And, that might be a little bit, we may be sort of complaining to just complain, because it's like that all across the board.
Yes.
Generally, you buy a product, especially if it's a smart product. Of course, you're going to have to. Of course, you have to set it up. Of course, you have to.
Yep.
Get an app and stuff for it.
But you don't hear that.
But it really does sound like they're a little bit of a superficial solution. It doesn't really go that deep, which was sort of what Mike was saying. So it does sound like it's just a wild west out there in terms of this technology being developed. I had no idea that there are so many.
Tons. Even if you were just to look at your Google Home app or your Amazon Echo app and look at the home automation or smart home skills that are available, there's TP-Link, there's Philips, there's Zigbee devices, there's Z-Wave devices, there's Philips devices.
Yeah.
It's just not one size fits all.
And this is where this idea of ecosystem, I feel like, is going to work against the industry, because it becomes too much of, it becomes too complicated when it comes down to if you're buying smart devices, because all of a sudden you're going to be like, well, you know what, I'm going to have to buy a blank, whatever, blender if I want to tie it into my home system, or I'm going to have to buy a certain type of TV because those are the only ones that are going to work with this device and this device and this device that I already have, and that limits your consumer options in as opposed to opening them up. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what the next few years brings to this, especially since this technology is really sort of new into the mainstream market.
Yeah, and I think my main concern is talking about the ecosystem. If you're throwing all of your eggs in the Google basket, if you look back at the last 5-6 years, Google's history of releasing products and canceling products is really high. So let's say you buy a bunch of products that work with your Google Home, and lo and behold, Google decides to discontinue the Google Home line.
But that's not going to happen.
But we don't know that. It wasn't going to happen with Android TV. It wasn't going to happen with their Nexus players. It wasn't going to happen with... They've thrown so much against the wall in the past. Voice control may be here now, but what's next?
Yeah, I don't know, dude.
So if you automate your home with all the switches and bulbs and wall outlets and everything else, whatever comes next is going to have to work with that, or you're invested.
No, I think the Google Home, I think the Google voice assistant stuff I think that's pretty much stuck to the wall. I hope so. I think that's here to stay. I don't think that there's any fear of that. But I think Mike's absolutely right. Obviously there needs to be standards here, especially when you factor in the fact that the potential for accessibility is so large. These are game changers for people who have limited mobility or have accessibility issues. It can change their lives so much. It's important to have standards so that it makes that process a lot easier, and you're not faced with a huge high cost system like Digital Lifestyles provides. As much as it would sort of kill Digital Lifestyles business model, if it was just as easy as going to Home Hardware and buying a bunch of stuff, and it would just work with each other, and it would provide real deep accessibility solutions for an end user for a limited budget, I mean, that's the ideal here.
Yeah, and I just kind of relate this to home theater. There are standards, but just because you buy, let's say, a 5.1 or 7.1 home theater receiver doesn't necessarily mean it plays all the formats you're looking for, like DTS:X, Oro 3D, Dolby Atmos, the surround sound enveloping new audio formats that are out. Some play one or two of them, some play all of them, some play one of them. So depending on the Blu-ray that you just bought, maybe it only supports Dolby Atmos, but your receiver doesn't support Atmos, you're not going to be able to get the full benefit of what's on that Blu-ray.
Sure. And see, I don't even understand half the stuff that you just said. So because I'm not an audiophile.
But again, it's all standards, right?
But absolutely. But I mean, and in terms of, and it's kind of always been like that, especially in terms of, the entertainment side of things, like Blu-rays, DVDs. You remember, what were they called? HD DVDs
which
and stuff.
they thought was going to
There's
win.
all kinds of format wars, and there always seems to be format wars in terms of that. But when it's as important as accessibility, it's a little frustrating to think that it's still the Wild West out there, and they're just all clamoring over each other to try to get an advantage over each other. Really, it needs to be sort of there needs to be standards in order for us to be able to push accessibility forward in this sense. So, but I mean, that's not going to happen, because especially when you're dealing with the mainstream, because it's all about.
Well, that's just it. I think the mainstream isn't thinking about accessibility. And, I think, and I was going to ask Mike about this, but decided not to. I think the way he got into this was he had a neighbor or a friend who had a son who was a paraplegic or a quadriplegic. And I think they did some automation for him. But unless, you know somebody with a disability and you're kind of in that industry, you probably wouldn't even think twice.
That's right.
About accessibility in your products. The nice thing is more and more companies are starting to realize that, those of us with a disability have money to spend on products and are starting to release products with more and more accessibility features built in. Some of Philips 2017 Blu-ray players have voice output. So they have their own little screen reader to read out menus and that type of thing.
Right.
But, again, I think it comes down to marketing. If these companies aren't marketing that their products have accessibility, how do those of us with a disability even know those products exist?
True.
Right? So it's kind of a vicious circle.
It is. And, what it really comes down to is that accessibility needs to be a larger conversation across the board, so that any given technology or product that comes out, accessibility needs to be it just needs to be a habit where that becomes part of that conversation about that product. And we're not there yet, but we're getting better.
That's right. So all you Americans, litigate.
Wait, aren't you the same guy I had the litigation argument with a couple weeks ago, where you're just like, yeah, less litigation sucks, now you're all about litigation?
Well, I saw another Twitter post this morning where I think somebody filed a lawsuit against TD, I think, or some bank, that because their websites weren't accessible. So
good.
There's another one.
Well, good. That needs to happen.
Did they approach them and even bring the topic up?
Who cares? It needs to be
a conversation.
I don't think so. I think litigate people. I'm all
You
about.
just said accessibility needs to become a bigger conversation.
Yeah, and that needs to be. We need to strong arm them into that conversation. Hit them where it counts. Litigation. Let's be honest. Money's the only thing that drives these conversations.
Well, these guys
for
got
the
money
companies.
coming out their yin yang. What's $1 million?
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, holy cow! This has been an epic show. This has gone so long, but it's a fascinating development. This Inclusio, I mean, let's hope that more of these start appearing. It's a fantastic thing that these guys are doing, and digital lifestyles as well. Like I really hope that more companies appear like this, because it's so important, and it sounds like they do a lot of charity work and stuff. I noticed on their website they have a big a charity concert every year. So.
Yeah, they're definitely enabling and empowering individuals to be able to be independent.
Yep. Yeah. It's
so good on them.
So, great job for accessible housing, digital lifestyles. They're doing some amazing work out there in Calgary. And it's a fascinating subject. So I hope everyone forgives us for having a long episode this week, but there you go. So we should get out of here.
All right, let's go.
Hey, Ryan.
Rob.
Where can people find us?
They can find us at www.atbanter.com.
You can also drop us an email. We love email. I don't think we've gotten any lately, but
Just from Allie.
Just from Allie, our good buddy Allie. Hey, let's give a shout out to Allie.
Shout out.
For helping us out last week. It was very cool.
Woot, woot.
Yeah, you will have to maybe do that, again in the future. If somebody's out there that listens, wants to sit in on a show, hey, by all means, let us know. We'll talk to anybody.
No,
We're
just
lonely.
open the floodgates.
Especially let's open them. Gonna have everybody in there. Yeah, that's fine. Email us.
Bring it on.
Ryan's lonely. His wife's away for the week, so
That's right.
Drop us a line. So you can do that. atbanterpodcast@gmail.com.
You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook.
Yep, atbanter, all one word, and at @AT_banter for our Twitter.
Absolutely.
Drop us a like if you like the show on iTunes, because that helps us out. And what else? You can find Mr. Steve Barkley and the rest of us at Canadian Assistive Technology. That's www.canasstech.com. And Mr. Rick Chant, if you've got a piece of assistive technology that is no longer working, that's broken, he can help you out. His website is www.chaostechnicalservices.com. I forget his phone number, but it's there on the website. All right. Woo. Man, I'm tired. Monday, we're already working hard.
Hardly working.
No, that's not true. I don't know about you. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I've been Rob Minot.
And I've been Ryan Fleury.
And we will
Night,
see
y'all.
you. Stop it. And we will see everybody next week.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions across Canada. Find us online at www.canasstech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com. Or call us toll free at 1-844-795-8324. For all your assistive technology servicing needs, call Chaos Technical Services at 778-847-6840 or find them online at chaostechnicalservices.com. Music provided by bensound.com.